Next guest is a French philosopher known the world over. He's director of 8 films and the author of 48 books. He's one of the West's foremost intellectuals, defending democracy and humanism against totalitarianism and fascism. Joining us from Paris is Bernard-Henri Lévy. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
What inspired you to write your book, Israel Alone, at this specific moment in history?
The wish to help, and the wish to help young people, young Jews, young friends of Israel to defend Israel in an unapologetic way, in a proud way. I think that there is no reason to be apologetic, no reason to excuse oneself. And I really wrote this book in order to give some sort of intellectual ammunitions for those who stand with Israel, who stand with Jews, and who stand with liberal values which are naturally linked to Jewish thought. This is the purpose of the book.
Can you describe your personal experience on October the 7th, hearing the news, and then you immediately chose to go to Israel? Tell us a bit about that, please.
My personal experience is very simple. I heard the news on Saturday morning. I'm not a very good Shabbat follower, so I had the news early. I decided immediately in a glance to fly to Israel, and I jumped in the first available flight. It was the time where all companies in the world were canceling their flights. They were treating Israel as a sort of cursed country, a victim of an early blockade, in a sense. There was only El Al. So the first available El Al flight, I took it. I arrived in Sderot, in the south of Israel, on the night of the 8th. I was in Kfar Aza and Be'eri on the 10th, maybe 11. The corpses had been already removed, but there were still pieces of bodies here and there remaining, pieces unattributed, if I can say. There were still some light fights inside the kibbutz of Kfar Aza. I was there with my dear friends of Elnet, who helped me to organize that. And for me, it's an unforgettable experience to arrive in those ghost kibbutzim, like you say, a ghost city, a ghost town, to see those who escaped and to feel the presence of those who died. For me, even if I have seen a lot in my life, if I have experienced a lot in my life, this is one of the most unforgettable experiences in my life.
Did you ever think that you would see the kind of sights that you ended up seeing after October the 7th? How do we reconcile this moment in history?
No, I did not think I would see that again. Number one, such a pogrom. This was unthinkable. Number two, a pogrom in Israel, in the very country which was built in order to prevent the comeback of the worst. And number three, what was maybe the most surprising is to see not a wave of support for Israel, but a wave of, I don't even dare to say, but nearly in some circles, and not only in the Muslim world, also in America, also in Europe, joy. In the following days, following October 7, you had some great professors of renowned American universities who shared videos, contents, saying that it was a great day in their life. In the very beginning, a few days before the counterattack of Israel, you had demonstrations in the streets of New York saying that October 7 was a fair reply to a long Israeli occupation and so on. And the reply for me, the reply of the West, of part of the West, a large part of the West, was also unthinkable for someone like me.
And in your book, you discuss the concept of radical evil, you call it. How do you define this term, and why is it so relevant to this current situation?
Radical evil is, generally human beings commit evil with an aim, with a target. They want territory, they want political victory, they want I don't know, to steal. There is a target, there is an objective. In that case, it was evil for evil. To rape ladies in such a way, to take hostages like praise in antiquity, in the antique times, to treat hostage as they were treated, like beasts, the few images we have, all of that is meaningless. There is not any agenda, even the most cynical in the world, which can explain this, except pure cruelty, pure will to kill, and to kill in the most vile way, pure will of humiliating, killing, torturing Jews because they are Jews. And this for me is radical evil. To kill someone with no other will, no other reason than the will to kill, the joy to kill, the passion to kill, this is radical evil. It is not a very Jewish concept, by the way, radical evil. But in this case, October 7, it applies.
Yeah, and you mentioned the response globally in Europe and America and other places. And in some areas, of course, as you said, that response was strangely joy. How do we understand that? Where have we come to? How have we got to this point that such evil acts, such radical evil, as you rightly term it, can be celebrated by some?
Because we knew, I wrote on that all my life. I knew that there is a deep, old undercurrent of resentment against Jews since always. I know that. Resentment, metaphysical resentment, religious anti-Semitism, political hate, geopolitical will to eradicate Israel. I know all of that. This exists since long. I thought that it was more or less held away, that it was under control, more or less. It was not. The resentment against Jews, the pure hate, really filled the air. You saw that in the UN. The first reactions of the UN at all levels, from top to toes, from the General Secretary Gutierrez to the UNRWA, was absolutely a shame, reversing the scale, the responsibilities, accusing the Jews of having their own, the responsibles of their own martyrdom, excusing the butchers and the killers. The first reflex, it was not even a way of reflecting, of reasoning, it was a reflex. The first reflex of the UN, without thinking, was to accuse the Jews, was to say that it was well deserved. In America, immediately the first reflex of so many people was to say that the Nova party, the Nova was a provocation, because it was, how can you organize a party, a feast, a dancing party so I didn't even dare to express, but so close to the border of Gaza. This was one of the first reactions you heard in the campuses of North America and in the campuses of Europe. On the other side, you saw immediately a bright, beautiful, admirable reaction of young students, Jews, and not only, who stood firm with the victims, who stood firmly with Israel, and without shame, without self-apology. You saw that too, a reaction of courage and of truth that at the same time, for myself at least, warmed my heart. Warmed my heart.
And maybe at the base of this, do you feel there's a lack of understanding about the role that Israel plays in Jewish life? We often hear these accusations of colonialism. How do you best explain to people who may have no connection to Judaism whatsoever about what role Israel plays in the life of Jews?
I think, and I say that at length in my book. I think that we are facing here an abyss of ignorance, People don't even know. These girls and boys in the campuses, they don't even know where is Gaza. They don't even know what colonialism is. They don't even know what is the history of Israel. They don't even know that Israel is the fruit of a liberation war, the only one which has, in the last 100 years, not only succeeded but not failed after success. They don't know. So in my book, this is one of the reasons why you asked me at the beginning of the conversation why I wrote this book. One of the reasons is to deconstruct all the myths of the anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish propaganda. There is few. Israel is a colonial state. Israel is a state based on apartheid. Israel is the arrow of Western imperialism, whatever. There is a series of myths which I methodically unbuild, deconstruct. And your followers, the students who follow you, I hope they will find in this book the arrows, the tools, the weapons to reply to this stupid, ignorant, moronic propaganda of the haters. They don't know nothing. They are politically illiterate, most of them.
And so how do we ensure then, to refer to your title, that Israel doesn't stand alone? And do you think that's an accurate representation? We saw that Economist magazine cover, Israel Alone, And then shortly after that, we also saw allies of Israel coming to its aid when they needed to fire at Iranian rockets. So, to what extent is Israel truly alone in the world?
You are right. Thanks God, situation is not desperate. And I think that if we don't, if Israelis, Jews, and genuine non-Jews friends of Israel and of Jews don't surrender, don't give up, don't try to be shy, we can fight this loneliness because it's still a wavering situation. On one side, in America, for example, it's very clear. You have a big current of public opinion who is not only against Israel, but who just sometimes just wonders why Israel. At the end of the day, why do we waste so much time, devote so much money, so much diplomacy? Why do we get so much headache? Why do we make so much enemies in the area for this tiny country, which is Israel? Why Israel is a question which is really deep in the consciousness of the American people. I saw that long ago when I made a long tour of whole America for a book called American Vertigo. It was a question which I heard more. Okay, we don't know if we like Israel or not, but we just ask why. So we have to reply to this question, why Israel? Why it is important for the geopolitical order, for the symbolic order of the world, for the survival of humanity, that Israel survive. This is the question which is raised. On the other side, you have, of course, some political personalities, and not the least, who say that they are pro-Israel, but all of that is very fragile. What makes me frightened, what made me give this title to this book, is that even when you have a democratic convention, a republican convention, where the support to Israel is asserted, I know how fragile all of that is. And I know that you have no political leader who will go for long against the trend, the wave, the current. So this is what has to be reversed, and this has to be done grassroots, by in the campuses, by the students, at the level of the young generation, and so on. If not, the last hold the line still, and you have some on the Republican side, on the Democratic side, they will give up at a point.
And you mentioned that you jumped on a plane immediately after October the 7th and came to Israel. You've been back since. So my question to you is, what's given you hope during that time in the things that you've seen in Israel since October the 7th?
The vibrancy of democracy. The vibrancy of democracy. When you spend time with on Hostage Square, when you spend time in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, when you spend time with soldiers of Tzahal, ladies, boys, well-made men, more age, you see that the spirit of Israel, the spirit, the openness, liberalism, democratic concern for the others, and for the other is still here. Is still more vibrant than anywhere. And honestly, what warmed my heart is that I never saw a country under attack in such an incredible, violent way as was Israel on October 7. It was, if you imagine that arriving in France or in America, you can imagine. I'm not sure we would have the same brave, full of cold blood reaction as Israel had, and still standing by its humanist values. This is great.
Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I know how much we respect and appreciate your voice in the world and your activism. And I know that also if we take on the messages of your book, then Israel truly will not stand alone. And that's something we deeply believe in at Stand With Us. I hope many young people and many people in general will seek out the book and learn the lessons from it. Bernard-Henri Lévy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.